All right, we're recording. Go ahead.
This is an interview with, I was going to call you Peter. Del Porter, my apologies. It's April 13th, 2016, and we are here to discuss the former Brookline Speedway. My first question.
Oh, by the way, we should introduce our interviewers, you and me. So you're here with?
I'm here with Del Porter. I present Del Porter.
But you are?
Huh? Oh, and I am Nancy Reinbold.
And I'm Scott Griff. We're off camera.
Okay, my first question, thinking back before the Speedway ever was established, what were the attitudes of the people when the idea came up of the Speedway? How did the people in Brookline feel about it?
General consensus, I think, was probably 60 to 75% of the people were for it. There was like probably 25% of the people that didn't care much for the idea.
Why would they object to it?
One thing was the noise, and there was families that moved out of town even on account of the noise after the racetrack got started. One thing, it was held on Sundays was another thing that I think was against a lot of people's ideas, you know. There was, during the afternoon, it ran, but then it also ran at night after they got lights, and that bothered people because it ran until midnight, you know, many nights until the races were finished, you know, and kept kids awake, and people had to work the next day. Noise, and I'll tell you, it was noisy. It was noisy.
Could you be here to this location here on at the top of Steam Mill Hill Road?
Up here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It came right up here. Also all along South Main Street, all down that area.
How did you feel about it?
I had no objections. I was a young fellow then, and it was something else that was going on in town.
Did you go to the races?
We went occasionally, not all the time. We weren't great race stands, but you know.
At that time, who owned the property that the
Lawrence Corey and Nason Fessenden.
I'm just taking quick notes here. Okay, who bought it before? Who brought the idea of the Speedway before the Board of Selectmen?
I have no idea, unless it was Corey and Fessenden. I have no idea, you know.
All right, now, did they rent that out to somebody else who established the races and that?
I can't remember.
Yeah. Somebody had said that they thought that somebody else was renting the property and, you know, organizing the races and everything. I can check on
that might have been, you know, because there probably was a racing combine, and maybe someone was promoting the racing, but I have no idea whether they were or not.
Do you remember when it was voted in by the selectmen?
Not the exact year, but sometime in the late 50s, I think. I don't really know.
Okay. On a personal level, how do you remember the Speedway? Were you a spectator, racer?
I was a spectator. Also, I was a member of the fire department. The fire department at that time ran an ambulance in town. And once or twice I was a driver of the ambulance at the races. Finally, I wouldn't drive anymore because the racetrack, whoever was running the races, as I say, I don't know if it was Corey and Fessenden or someone else again, would not hire a doctor. And so I told the fire department that I wouldn't drive the ambulance anymore. And that led to, I think, the end of the ambulance being run by the fire department. it was an old hearse that they had acquired somewhere, and it was just a case of, I don't know if they ever used it to carry anybody to a hospital or anything, you know, from the racetrack. I don't know if they ever did. But I just wouldn't drive it anymore, you know. I didn't want that responsibility also. So.
Good thinking. You said that you went to the races only occasionally?
Yeah, they were run practically every week, and we didn't go every week, you know.
Just the afternoons, or did you sometimes go when the...
Oh, I probably went at night. I don't remember that, you know, but I know we went at daytimes. I can't say whether we went at nighttime. Probably did, you know. That was a long time ago. I know.
Now, did you know any of the race car drivers?
Not personally, no. Only later years they did run jalopy races where you drive the cars on and wreck them, you know. Mm-hmm. And some of the local fellows in town at that time used to enter cars in it. And I knew some of those fellows that entered the cars in there. They're gone from here now, you know, unless Butch was one of them. I don't remember if Butch ended it, but I can remember.
I think he did race there.
Yeah.
I don't know what he raced. I will find out. What is your best memory of the Speedway?
My best memory of the Speedway.
Was there any particular event or any particular race that stands out in your mind?
No, no. When they first started, they ran those midget cars, midget races. There was none of the big race cars like they have now at Daytona and those. They didn't have those races in Brookline. They had the midget cars and then stock cars crashing into each other.
Can you remember anything bad that happened there? I mean, was there any particular accident or something?
No, no.
Were you at the race that Ronnie Bouchard won? Do you remember Ronnie Bouchard?
No, not personally that I can say I remember him. No.
That was quite an event. I was fortunate enough to interview him.
Yeah.
What do you remember about the town's feelings? Well, we already talked about that. Some were opposed and some were for it, but after the races started, you say some of the families moved because of the noise?
Yeah, there were some families that moved out of town on account of the noise.
Would they have been people down in South Brookline, or would they have been...
Yes, yeah. One family lived beside the Legion rooms first, then, and one family lived in Morris Marshall's house. Okay. And the family lived where Jackie Knowles lives now. They moved out of town. 3 families that I know.
That's down on Main Street.
Yeah, yeah.
They are noisy.
And that's not that far up the, across the field from behind.
No, it's, yeah.
I have heard from a couple of people who wish to remain unnamed that there was a track across the road on Route 13, probably down where that strip is in front of Paul Andres' property that's right on 13. And the kids used to go over there with their motorcycles or their cars. This was strictly unofficial. Do you know anything about that?
No.
The kids must have really covered that up. Somebody said that there had been a parking lot over there for people going to the races.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there was a parking lot over there, and that might have happened. I wouldn't doubt what it did, but
You were a good kid.
I didn't have any recollection of it, but I don't know. But at that time,
Do you have any photos or any memorabilia from that time?
no, I don't have anything on the racetrack at all. Like I say, I wasn't involved very much in the racetrack. The company that I worked for built the railroad, built the racetrack.
And that was?
Better's Construction Company. We did all the groundwork, and we didn't construct like the stands and all, but we did do all of the groundwork and the finished grading of the track before it was asphalted. We didn't asphalt it at that, because we didn't do asphalting at that time. Also, they had no electric power down there, which was called three-phase power, to run the lights at night. And our company, Better's Construction, had a large portable generator. And that's what they ran. They rented the generator from Better's and ran the power for the tracks at night. The generator was put into a truck and went down and hooked it up, you know, and after the races were over, unhooked it and put it away. And then it was taken down there the next night, and or whenever they wanted to use it, and hooked it up again. They had the regular 110 volt power and all, but they didn't have the large three-phase power for running the big floodlights.
Yeah. What do you recall they had for street or for race lighting? Did they have a? I know that Keith Thompson says he has a single light, like a blinking light we have at the couple of areas on Route 13 that may have been the stop light. Is that right?
They had a large stoplight, which is up in the barn now at the Historical Society. I guess, I don't think there's any glass in it or anything, is there? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
It's down in the basement there of the shed between.
And you feel that's the one that came from the racetrack?
Yeah, that's Keith turned that in.
What was that used for? Was that just a caution light, or was that something else that they would turn on and off?
I don't know whether they had all three lights in it. I don't remember, you know, whether the caution, stop, red, and green go. I don't know.
It didn't have it wasn't three layered. It was a single lamp, you know, or single.
I think it's a single lamp.
Yeah, it is a single lamp.
Yeah.
So I was just curious to know if how you remember that being used.
I don't even remember it, you know, in action, you know. I don't remember it now. As I say, I wasn't too much involved in the racetrack at all.
Did you go with friends or?
Well, it was close. There was friends that went. We didn't all go together, you know, as a group. We go up there. We'd meet different friends that were there, you know, or different friends came, whatever their program was, whatever our program was.
Do you remember what the cost was to get in?
Pardon? I don't remember what it cost to get in.
So they held different types of races, though, right? You said they had the.
They had the midget cars, and they had the stock cars, and I don't remember of anything else that they had. They may have, but I don't remember it. You know.
What was your impression about the speed they were going? Was it impressive?
There wasn't a big, long track. It was an oval, but not. I can't remember how long it was either.
I think we estimate it was
a third of a mile.
I don't know, Peter Fiandaca. I think it was under a quarter of a mile.
Oh, no.
I thought it was.
Reasons that they didn't, that NASCAR never sanctioned it.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't.
I thought it was a third of a mile, but I wouldn't say for sure.
I don't know.
So, you know, it didn't get up too much speed, what? Maybe 35 miles an hour, maybe 40.
If it was an oval, there really was no straightway with
No,
it.
no, it was an oval with short straightaways in between. It was short.
Do you remember the cars going over the fence into the parking lot, or tires coming off?
No, I don't seem to remember any. You know, as I said, we didn't go that often. You know, as I remember, you know, it was there, but it just wasn't that much of a draw to us. You know,
Those things that actually happened?
we did.
The things you mentioned?
Yes. Well, I have a lot from Peter Fiandaca. Do you remember a kid that was probably maybe 13, 14 years old selling popcorn in the stands? He went there with Frank Mickelson, who was one of the drivers, and he would sit with Frank's wife, Joan. And he said he would always get in free because whoever owned the ice cream stand would give him popcorn to sell, and he got to, whatever he sold, he got to keep a certain percentage, and then gave.
Don't remember.
So he always got in free, but he remembers a lot, and he went on to become a very, very successful racer on the NASCAR line. So.
No, I don't remember him at all. No.
I like to include in the research. I mean, I have gotten nothing from online because it just really is so little. There are things about some of the racers, which I've accumulated, and I look at it, but they don't say anything about Brookline. And I know that some of them did race at Brookline. So for me, my history update for the book is going to be interviews, oral conversations, that type of thing. And the more of those I get all these little tidbits from different people.
Yeah.
And like you're talking about the ambulance service, you know, I didn't hear that before.
Okay.
So this is something that I'm going to be including in the history. So this is, as I said, I really just talking about your own personal experience there is what I wanted. I really didn't need a lot of time. If you have any more questions,
I do.
You said you had some
Yeah, I have a couple
about
things.
the racetrack?
Well, not about the racetrack, no, I'm sorry. Can I
That's
segue
okay.
from that? Is that okay?
If you have any other questions
Yeah.
about the racetrack, fine. If not, why? It's all yours.
I've got some other things here. So, this is going back to some interviews that you had with Peter back a decade or more ago, I think it was. We'd indexed. And you had made some comments about your schooling history and a little bit about your family history and so forth, your dad's dairy farm, all the dairy stuff that you did down here. I had a recent interview with Rita Hall.
Yep.
And got a little bit of a background about the store down there. I was curious, the milking that you had here, did you ever sell through the store, or did you just deliver that directly yourself?
Nope. We delivered milk to the store, and they sold it.
Okay.
You know, as one of the commodities that they sold.
Did you deliver also, or did you sell directly to the store only?
Well, we just sold directly to the store, and you know, people came in and bought a quart of milk or a pint of milk. And at that time, the store did have a delivery route where they delivered groceries. So probably they delivered milk to whoever ordered it, you know.
Was it the same with Whitcomb store as well?
Yes, we did do some with Whitcomb store. I do remember that now, yes.
Was it less volume? Which store had more volume?
Oh, I think Hall's.
Yeah.
The Hall store had much more volume than Whitcomb did.
Did Whitcomb, having two stores in town was probably a bit of a, well, I don't know, you tell me.
Conflict?
Was it a conflict, or did it manage the town okay? Was the town small enough, or too small, or too big, or was it able to?
No, I think both of them made out all right. Hall's carried more commodities, I think, than Whitcomb did, but people went both ways, I think, you know. I know we did. We bought when we married from Hall store, or we bought from Whitcomb's, whichever, you know.
So you supported
Halls weren't open on Sundays. If you needed something on Sundays, Whitcomb was open most of the time. You know.
Was there anything else you sold through the store aside from the dairy?
No, not that I know of.
No.
No, we had a farm with a garden, but the garden was for our own personal use. You know, we didn't have my folks' garden and all. That. All that they sold was just the milk, milk and cream, and you know.
How many cows did you have at your?
Oh, up at sometimes it was as high as 20 cows. Or 20 head of stock altogether. But, you know, there always was some young stock.
Did you have a barn back here? Where'd you have it?
There was an addition on the barn, what's not there now.
Oh, okay.
There was a lean-to on the back of the barn. There was cattle in the barn and on the lean-to on the back.
I see.
You know.
And that's where they all stayed.
Yeah.
And that was closed. The lean-to was closed in or open?
Oh, that was all closed in.
It was closed.
It was all closed in. Oh, yeah.
So you got quite a bit of milk every day. Almost 20 head, or on the average, right? Oh, some were good, some were bad.
Oh, we probably, you know, 100, at least around 100 quarts a day, you know, that came from the cattle, you know. And that when I was young, before I went in the service, that was all milked by hand.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
When I come home, my father had put in a milking machine. But
so go back. You were born into the dairy. I mean, that was established when you were born here.
the dairy?
Yeah.
No, well, no. When I was born, my father had a farm with a few cattle.
Okay.
But he was road agent for the town of Brookline.
Right.
He was also highway, state highway patrolman, they called him in those days, for the state highway through Brookline.
Okay.
I was born in Revere, Mass. You had that probably.
Yeah,
in
I don't
there.
remember.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And well, when the way that he got the dairy was through politics, he lost his job with the state.
Okay.
And the town roads were not enough to carry the family through. So he bought a milk road from people in Amherst that was selling out. And
Do you remember who that was?
Currier.
Oh yeah.
Currier Farm.
Okay.
Which is part of the Currier Lumber Company now, and where the golf course is in Amherst. And ran the farm along with the road agent's job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what year would that have been, do you think?
Oh, 30, 37, 38, along in there somewhere, yeah.
Okay.
Because I can remember peddling milk. You know, I went to high school in Milford,
Yeah.
and peddling milk all the way into Milford with my father, and he would finish the route. I'd go to high school.
He would deliver you to school as you were delivering, right?
Yeah.
So, so the milk. He bought the milk route. I'm sorry. He bought the milk route from Currier, but he began milking and selling locally to the store. Did he ever do his own milk routing, or was that to the store right away?
Oh, it was, you know, shortly after they went into the milk business that we started selling to the store.
Okay. Right.
And to local delivery.
Yeah.
And in the summertime to Camp Tevye.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
What was your involvement with that? I mean, were you the one milking with your dad?
Oh yeah,
tell me a little bit
you
more
know,
about
when
that
I was
activity.
when I was young, high school and going to school and high school, and up until the time I left to go into service, you know, I was involved in the dairy part of it. You know, I was milking cows, doing the haying in the summertime, and whatever needed to be done. Hauling ice in the wintertime and filling out. We had our own little ice house, and whatever needed to be done, I
Where
did
did
it.
you harvest your ice? Where did you get your ice from?
Well, we hauled the ice from Potanapo, Grover Fowle Sr., when he cut ice there in the wintertime.
Oh, okay.
We bought ice from him and brought it down and put it in the little ice house they had, or an old shed that was up on the hill here.
Do you remember how long that process? How long Grover was doing that?
No, he had been doing it for years and years,
Yeah.
that I knew of before, you know, all the time that I was a young fellow, and I don't remember him doing it after I came home from the service. I don't remember.
So back by mid-40s or so.
Then 45 I came home, and I don't remember him doing it then.
So give me the life and the day of Del Porter at before you went into service, milking cows. You were up at the crack of dawn, the roosters crowing. You had to get out there. And,
whenever my mother could get me out of bed.
All right, so tell us about that. Let's talk about the incorrigible Del Porter at the age of 16, 17. What were you doing during your days?
What was I doing? Well, raising hell a lot, probably, you know. I had a car when I turned 16. I had a car, and of course the young fellows, we would go to the movies. I think Eugene and I were dating even before I had a car. About the time that we were dating, I had a car, I guess. But we'd go to the movies, we'd swim up at the lake. Used to skating parties, it's not skating parties, but skating in the wintertime. We had a hockey team here in Brookline.
Oh, did you?
Us young fellows, yeah, we were down on the Twin Pond down there, what they call Pierce's Pond in those days, Pearly Pierce's Pond.
Is that down by Cider Mill? Or?
Averill Hill
Averill.
Road. Averill Hill Road.
Oh, yeah, okay.
On going towards town to the pond on the left-hand side, we used to play there.
You're talking about where on Route 13 now, or are you talking about by Wallace Brook?
Route 13.
Okay.
Route 13.
And what was that called?
Uh,
Percy's? Or?
Pearly
Pearly?
Pierce's Pond. He was the person that lived in that house there.
Yeah.
One.
And Route 13 bisected the ponds there, right? Is that right?
Yeah, it goes between the two ponds, right.
Exactly, yeah.
We used to skate on the one on the left-hand side.
Okay.
We had a regular, like a hockey rink set up. We had boards all around.
Yeah.
We used to play the club from East Milford, and we played some guys from Townsend. You know, it was just a pickup thing. We had pickup baseball teams. We never had any money to buy baseball. We'd get an old baseball that the town had and have it was all taped up or something, you know. We also played ball in the field beyond Betty Hall's house over here was a field at that time. Wasn't all grown up to brush like it is now. We used to play out there a lot. Because they didn't like us to play up on the town ball field because we scrubbed the dirt all up and all. But No, we didn't use Lake Potanipo much in the wintertime. It was too cold and windy. You know, the wind was blowing up there so much for skating and all. You know. Go out of town to the movies. We used to go to Whalen Park.
Whalen
Park and Fitchburg, Leominster, Lunenburg there, Lunenburg. And
What was
I belonged to the Boy Scouts when I was a young fellow.
Oh, you did? What was your rank? Your final rank?
I don't remember. I know I must have been second or first class scout. I never, it never was going along enough, I don't think, for anybody to get up to Eagle and all the higher ranks. You know.
Was that still Troop 260 at that time?
Yeah.
It was.
It was 260. Yeah. It met in the Legion Hall. The scoutmaster was a man by the name of Byron McPheters. McPheters, I think. And he was a government like a conservation officer, but he wasn't a local conservation. You know, he was state, federal government conservation officer.
Oh, that'll be good. How many kids were in the troop when you were going through?
I can't tell you for sure, but there probably was a dozen, 15, maybe, something like that.
Do you remember who any of them were? Remember the names? I can't seem to remember who any of them were. I think Alpha Hall, Rita's husband Alpha.
Okay.
I think he was. There were families in town that had moved out of town. There was a boy by the name of Estes, Wally Estes, E-S-T-E-S, I think his name was, Wally Estes. Can't seem to think of. I think Steve Holmaleski.
I was going to ask about, because you had some buddies, Jeff Powers, Alvin Taylor.
Yes, Alvin Taylor.
Andy Hansen.
Yep.
Winston.
I don't know if Winston was old enough to be in the Scouts when I was in there. He's
Arthur Tasker.
Arthur Tasker was the owner of Tasker's poultry farm.
All right, so he was
He was an older person.
Yeah.
And
How about
he was Ann Corey's father.
Oh, okay.
Ann Corey lives across from me here.
And Jeff Powers was another buddy of yours, right?
Powers, Hobart, Chappie Powers.
Chappie Powers?
Chappie.
Would you have been a scout? Fellow scout?
I don't know whether he was the Boy Scouts or not. I think possibly he was. I can't really say, no. You know, you're talking about when I was
like it's
10,
yesterday.
12 years old.
You're not that old. I remember when 21 was old. Now I think 100 is young.
Yeah, like Arthur's birthday's 22nd of May. He'll be 99 years old, Arthur.
By the way, is he home yet?
Yes.
Okay. Is he
okay? They took him down to the hospital, and I guess it was just observation. They brought him back again.
Okay.
He was home Monday.
Will he be at the meeting tonight, you think?
There's a on the internet from Denny.
Yeah.
She just put it on yesterday, I think. I don't know if you read it or not. Okay, he's okay. He's just sore, and, you know.
Right.
He wants to be up and around.
So we'll see him at the meeting tonight, maybe?
We won't see him.
Oh,
But
we won't?
no. I take him to the meetings and all, but I'm getting so I don't want to be responsible for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if something happens, I can't do anything. I hate to not take him around to the Legion and the meetings, but I suppose it's within such a short distance in town. If something happens,
Maybe I'll stop by and see if
I can always get somebody or something in a hurry.
Yeah.
But if he falls getting into the car and nobody's around, I can't.
Right.
I hate to think that I can't do it for him.
I understand.
But
Let me jump to the Route 13 construction.
pardon?
Let me jump to Route 13 construction.
Yep. Yeah.
Was Better's Construction in charge of that, or were they?
No, that was a state bid.
Okay.
Bid let out to bids.
Yeah, and that
State of New Hampshire.
And that went in 40.
I'm going to say 47 or 48.
So that was there. That was going in when you came back from the service.
Yeah, yeah.
Was the job begun after you came back, or was it already in progress?
Oh no, it was begun after service. I got home in 45, and that wasn't started until 47 or so, I think, somewhere around there.
So tell me some of the goings on, the things that predated the construction, leading up to the construction, and what you remember during and after, or during that construction period.
Well, the first phase of the rebuilding of Route 13 was done in 3 sections. It was done in 3 sections. The first section was built by R.G. Watkins and Company from Amesbury, Mass. They started at the Townsend line. Came as far as where South Main Street takes off from Route 13 now. Then they went through new territory until they connected with the railroad tracks, approximately where the pizza, the Dunkin' Donuts is now. And from there, they followed the railroad tracks all the way to Mason Road, and then branched off from the railroad railroad tracks, went up over Rock Raymond. Rock Raymond, and crossed Quimby Road and went as far as Chrysanthus Restaurant.
Okay.
That was the first section.
Was there a loop up by Chrysanthus?
No.
How did they have to? They had to turn the train around at some point, did they not?
The only train turnaround that I knew of was in Milford.
So they would go all the way to Milford,
Yeah.
and then
The train turned around.
Okay.
Yeah. That was the first section of road that was done.
Okay.
They, of course, had a lot of drilling and blasting going up over the hill, and a lot of the rock was used to fill in when they came down off of the hill.
Yeah.
And went right by the site of where Camp Tevier is now, right by it. It didn't disturb Camp Tevier any. Camp wasn't there then.
Yeah. The hill you refer to is the camp, or the hill just adjacent to Camp Tevier, right, further north?
Yeah, further north.
Yeah.
Rock Raymond.
Yeah, right. Okay, that
Rock Raymond.
that rise up to the left-hand side going north. Okay.
Yeah.
So, so what was the blasting like? What was that process, and how long did that last? And was it disturbing? Did they give you whistles when they were ready to blast and all that? What did that look like?
No, I don't think at that time they even did it. They just were ready to blast, and it was in the woods at that time. There was no traffic on anywhere near it, and they just blasted and went in and cleaned the rocks out. did whatever they had to do.
What was the time frame that it took from beginning to end? Do you recall that?
I would say it took 2 years, probably.
Did they work through the winter time as well?
I don't think so, no. They might have worked on the bridge over the river by
Yeah.
Mason Road. They may have worked on that bridge.
And was there a bridge also? Well, they had to put the bridge over 13
Yep,
adjacent to the railroad bridge there,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so they did that on a separate piece.
yeah.
That brings me to another topic about the canal. We talked about the canal at
Yeah.
one point. Do you recall if the canal went in that general vicinity of where that new bridge is on 13, or was that someplace else? Do you recall any of that at all?
The canal goes under Mason Road, right there where the small covered bridge is.
Right, yeah.
Small covered bridge is.
Did that go into
but
the
then the other bridge beyond that,
Yeah,
by the public beach,
yeah.
that was put in by the state before Route 13 was put
Okay.
in.
Well, yeah, because Mason Road existed well before then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Going back to the canal where we have the small covered bridge, did the canal and then empty into the river at that location?
That it along in there somewhere, right by
Okay.
where that foundation is there, like for the old mills
Yeah.
and all that was on the bank there.
Because we had a conversation about Canal Street,
Yeah.
and thinking the canal had gone down there someplace.
Yeah, yeah.
Was-
That I think what happened that canal carried the chips away from the machine that smoothed the blocks all
Yeah.
out, and that ran right into the river, and the chips and all ran down the river, and then some way they diverted them off
Oh, again.
behind Ralph Bent's house,
Okay.
because as Lauren Quimby said the other night, there was a tunnel, like a tunnel
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
He spoke about it. I never knew about that. And I asked Sandy Bent yesterday, I saw her at the post office, and she said, yes, it's still out there.
Oh, there is.
And I want to take Joe
Okay.
and go out and see it.
Okay.
Because Sandy said when they were doing their evergreen business and selling their flowers and all, she said we used to store them in that old tunnel
Oh, no kidding.
to keep them from, keep
Yeah.
them fresh.
Sure.
Yeah,
So that must be, so it's adjacent to the river running just behind the house.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
In the Nissitissit.
Yeah.
And somehow, I don't know how, they diverted those chips off,
Yeah.
because I can remember that huge pile of chips out there.
Well, huge pile at the ice site or down?
No, behind Ralph Bent's
kidding.
house.
Okay.
Behind Ralph Bent's house. Right in that area somewhere, where there was the next house up
Yeah.
from Ralph out in there. Because I think Ralph's sister lives out behind him now in that house. And it was somewhere in that area right there.
You don't recall any type of sluice or something being built for any other reason, for power or for grinding or anything else back there, right?
No,
Okay.
no.
And that's a pile of ice that you would have played in, is that right?
Well, yeah,
is it-
but it was, it was a frozen pile of chips,
Yeah.
and I can just remember it, it being there.
And it lasted through the spring and summer?
Oh yeah, it would last into the summer,
Did you go over there to cool off?
Not that I know of.
Oh,
We went to swim to cool off.
yeah,
Whenever I could get away from the haying.
exactly right. Can't hear you, Dad. What else about the Route 13 construction was of noteworthy interest?
Well, the second section
Yeah,
started from Crescentis
okay,
and went all the way to where Lowell's Stand is now.
yep,
And that was put in by a company called Landers and Griffin.
Landers and Griffin?
Landers
Yeah.
and Griffin
Okay,
from Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
oh, okay,
And they took a lot of the fill off of North Mason Road, where the 2-3 houses down in there.
yeah,
I can't remember. Anyway, on the left-hand side, that first couple of houses there, they took a lot of the fill out of there, you know, for the roadway.
Yeah.
And that was done probably, what, the early 50s.
Okay.
Early 50s.
The rest,
And
you mean the rest of that stretch?
that follows pretty much the route of the old Route 13, you know.
Oh, okay, that's right, because we came out of 130, then, or
Yeah.
out of Quimby, I guess. Quimby
Yeah.
came up and wrapped around and
By
went up that.
Chrysanthus.
Yeah.
And from Chrysanthus, it followed the old Route 13. There was a few little changes,
Yeah.
but not too much.
Widening.
All the way right
What-
down to Lowell Stand.
Now, were there houses that had to be moved? I know the snack bar, the old railroad station, had to be moved about 50 or some odd feet off the road.
It was moved back.
It was
Right.
moved back. Were
Right.
there other houses or buildings that were moved to accommodate that?
No, not that I know of.
No.
But there used to be, from where the railroad snack bar is now,
Yeah.
and Route 13, south of there,
Yeah.
there used to be a railroad storage shed, you know, for freight coming in.
Okay.
There used to be a storage shed down there, and that was probably demolished. If it was still there, I think it was still there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was or not.
Would it have
It
been
might
down
have been demolished before because the railroad stopped running after the ice.
Right.
I don't know just when they stopped running.
I think it was 35 or so.
The railroad stopped running.
Yeah.
Well, that storage
Would have gone down then.
freight house must have been demolished before that.
You remember when the tracks were picked up?
I can remember. Can't remember the date, but I can remember them picking up the tracks.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was shortly after the railroad stopped working and well before 13 went in, correct?
Yeah. I would say yes.
Yeah.
I can remember them tearing up the tracks.
And they took the ties out with them? Did they leave those behind or did they take the ties?
Most of them they left right where they were.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they rotted away. People picked them up and used them. I think if they were any good, they picked them up and took with them. And what they weren't any good, they didn't take. You know what I mean?
What did they do with the railroads? They took them up,
The railroad
Yeah.
rails, you
the
mean?
rails.
Oh, they picked them up, and I don't know whether they used them for scrap or what, but they, you know, they ripped them up. They had a big truck, and they would hook a chain around the rail and around the truck, and the truck would go. And I can remember them that way. You know, they didn't, as I remember, bring in a crane or anything like that to rip them up. You know, I can remember that truck jerking those rails up. You know, like that.
And during that time, too, by the way, we were leading up to the Second World War, so they would have gone in for the
I was thinking they
scrap
probably
too.
melted them down and
Yeah.
used them for munitions and things.
Very well could have. Jumping over to Pheasant and Mill, because you mentioned that there was electric and water provided by Pheasant and Mill at one point
Yeah.
early on.
Yeah.
Do you know how much of the town was provided with power and water?
No, I don't remember much about the power at all. Water lines ran as far as the store down here.
The whole store?
It ran as far as that house where Charlie Corey lives
Yeah.
now. Yeah. Water lines ran there because they supplied water. Most of the people worked at the mill there anyway, and they supplied the water all over. I don't remember anything about the power plant.
Okay.
I don't remember anything about that.
Do you know if Hall Store used the benefit of the spring or the river next to them for any water benefit or anything like that?
No, I don't know where they got their water from. I don't know where the well was for the store.
Because then there was the town fountain. So do you think the water came from Pheasant for the town fountain?
Well, the town fountain.
It seems plausible, right?
No, possible. Well, I'm just wondering because, as you know, my well is right out here in the middle of the street, in the triangle.
That's the triangle, yeah.
In the triangle. That well supplied the horse watering trough, which used to be
Yeah, okay.
used to be down right in front of the store,
Okay.
and that's the watering trough that's on the town hall lawn
That's
now
right.
that the flowers are planted in.
Now, how did you guys get that responsibility for filling up the horse watering trough?
For pulling that up?
Well, no, for
Oh,
water
well,
for it.
there's the town sometime or other
Yeah,
dug that well.
I see.
Town dug that well. Gravity feed
Sure.
from the well down to there.
Yeah.
After it wasn't used anymore for horses or on all the, there was some accidents of people running into the watering trough down there. You know, I can remember one morning when I went out to deliver milk. There was a truck right up on top of it. A freight company from Manchester. That's when they were going through Brookline, on Route 13, went right through Brookline. And he had gone to sleep and got right up on top of it and rolled it right out of the ground.
Mm.
At that time, that whole watering trough was covered with concrete. It was a big concrete tub, you know. And they took it out, put it down back at the town hall where the firehouse is now. And after years, they broke the concrete off it and put it up on the town hall lawn. But this well out here supplied them. And many, many years ago, fellow that lived here, Knudsen, had chickens, and his well went dry, and he got permission from the town to tap into it.
Okay.
And when I bought the place from Knudsen, you know, I've had it for 65 years now. I think possession 9 points to the law. So, you know, there was a real estate agent moved into the house across the street years ago, and he tried to buy the well from the town, and the town wouldn't.
No.
They paid no attention to him at all. So, you know, I've taken care of it all these years and all, and fought with Jerry and fought with Clarence. Now that they're using salt, I don't know how long it's going to last, you know what I mean? But I've had no problem with it. We use a Brita pitcher, and outside of that, you know, we use that pitcher for drinking water and for coffee, and most of our cooking and all, and the rest of it's for showers, and never had a problem with it.
Keep our fingers crossed on that.
It's a big well. It's about 22 feet deep,
Yeah.
and it's 8 foot across this way, and it's all stoned up with stone. It's round. It's round, and it's all stoned up. And I have seen it half full of water. I don't see it now. I haven't checked it for 4 or 5 years, maybe more. But the last time I've checked it, it was about 3 to 4 feet of water in it.
What was the name of the Knudsen family you bought the house from?
Albert
Knudsen?
Albert Knudsen,
What year did you buy the house, or did your father buy the house?
1951.
Okay. Where'd you live before that? Were you in Revere?
Oh,
Oh, you were here.
for a while, right after we were married, we lived with my wife's folks, and they lived up just beyond, in that big house beyond Mahocking School.
Okay, that's right.
The big house
Okay.
on the left.
So you bought this house from Knudsen?
And
You in Virginia.
then we had a small apartment in my folks for a short time, not too long. Then the house became available, that small house beyond Mahocking School,
Yeah.
out in the back, yeah. My wife's folks owned it, and we moved into that until I bought this house.
Off the topic a little bit, just up the road from here on Old Milford Road, left-hand side I think is a white house, and I'm just going from a description that Rita Hall had given to me. Was there ever a slaughterhouse up here? Do you recall? And I'm not sure if it's that first house or second house on the left-hand side that where the backyard or the yard kind of goes down behind, or if there's anything further up that you would have remembered that there would have been some sort of a processing for bovine or for any of the animals.
I know there was a slaughterhouse in the neighborhood somewhere. I don't know where it was.
Okay.
I have no idea. I know there was one in the neighborhood somewhere, but I don't know where it was.
Okay. Jumping over to the ice house fire, you at 13 years old saw the flames.
Yeah. Saw the smoke. Didn't see any flames at the first part of it.
What time of day was that?
I don't remember much about the day. This was like
Early evening? I mean, was
like 6 o'clock at
okay,
night.
6 p.m.? Okay.
In that area, 6 o'clock at night.
Okay. So you saw the smoke.
And, well, when we saw the smoke, then we knew it was a real fire. It was. And I ran down to the town hall where the Grange was having a rehearsal for a play, and Grover Fowler was on the fire department. Grover Fowler Sr. I ran in and told him about the fire, and he ran down to where the annex is now, which was a firehouse, and blew the whistle. And that's the way the alarm was turned in.
What did you do after that? Did you follow them? Did you go back and watch? What did you
Oh,
do?
no, I came home.
Oh, you did?
My folks down here.
Yeah.
I came home, and it was as light as day.
Really?
You could read the paper from the glow of the fire, And later on that evening, we got in the car and we rode up to corner Rocky Pond Road up here. And at that time, trees weren't growing up or anything. You could look down and it was like a huge cauldron. All, then the flames were gone and everything was just glow, big glow of fire.
I mean, the flames must have been, what, 3 or 4 stories high? Because the building itself was 3 stories or higher, right?
Yeah.
Probably even higher than that.
When it burned, it was 3 stories high. Yeah. And then the fire had all died down, the main part of it died. But everything was burned for a couple of days, naturally.
How long did the flames burn? How long did you see the light of the flames? And was it more than one night? Did it continue to see?
Oh, I think maybe that night by I know it was dark when we went up there, and I'm going to say maybe by 10, 11 o'clock, the biggest part of the fire was, what was left was all glow and smoldering. It just went that quick.
How long did it take for some of the fire apparatus to get there? I know Brookline was on the scene first, but...
Well, Brookline was there right away, and it wasn't long. You could hear sirens coming from everywhere. Townsend, Pepperell, Milford, Manchester, Fitchburg was there. Every place there was a puddle of water in town, there was a fire truck sitting at there, And there was one down by the brick house on South Main Street, because the embers were flying down that way, and they were putting out fires behind what was then Ildo Fesnan's house, the house up the street,
I was talking to Peggy Ward. She lived down there at the time, and she said all the smoke and and even the fire paper, or the I guess they could call it insulation paper, whatever the paper was that they built.
And who was that?
That was Peggy Hall.
Oh yeah,
Peggy Ward.
They lived down across the street practically from Buddy Knudsen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just the house down the hill.
So she said she could see all the smoke in the air, but then some of the embers and some of the things were coming down even around them down that far. So it was blowing south or southwest.
It started numerous small fires that had to be put out.
So tell me more about that. So what do you recall of that?
Just that that embers would start a fire, maybe like in the grass or pine needles or something. No big fires.
Any houses that caught?
No,
or
no, no.
So small trees, small grass fires?
Well, just small grass fires,
Yeah.
brush or pine needles if there was
Yeah.
pine trees or something. Nothing large, no.
And nothing that got out of hand at that point?
No, no,
Okay.
no.
How did the people just see it and smolder it, or was it something you did by hand?
Well, I guess people were watching to see what was happening, you couldn't get anywhere near the fire, most people were watching their own property down in that area.
Sure. Yeah. How late did you stay up that night? Were you up late that night?
I don't remember.
But you were up.
I can remember going up there and coming home and probably went to bed. I don't know.
So you were up at Rocky Pond though when it was very, very dark at night and.
Oh yeah, it was dark, but then in spring it got dark early.
Right.
So maybe we came home, we had cattle to take care of in the next morning and milking to do and all. So
Minor disturb.
I imagine 10, 11 o'clock we probably were back in bed again.
One final thing I've got is about your the swimming near the ice house when it was still up, and I have some stories about people talking about going underneath the ice house and having some of the dripping ice cool them off when they were underneath. Do you recall any of that?
No.
Okay, so that must have been
No.
somebody else who had that bright idea. But you were swimming on the far end of the ice house, jumping off
Where the Camp Tevye beach is
where
now.
the beach is now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But even now, that's not their ass beach, but the closer beach to Camp Tevye.
Yeah, the Camp Tevye's own
Right.
private beach, not the public
And then
beach.
there was you talked about a
There was another run out there where when they were cutting ice and filling the main ice houses, they also had this structure on the upper end where they brought ice cakes up so they could keep loading the cars in the wintertime also and not disturb what was going on at the main.
okay.
Joe has found the foundations out in the water for that. It was a endless chain affair
Yeah.
that went up to pull the ice cakes up to the railroad cars where they filled them. I can't remember just much about it except that it was there,
Yeah.
and we used to, in the summertime, we'd dive off of it. We used it for like a diving board, dive in the water.
How high above the water was that?
Oh, not very high,
Okay.
8 feet maybe.
Okay.
There was places where it came from the lake up to the railroad tracks up here,
Yeah.
where you could drive underneath it with a car,
Okay.
because it went up the hill.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, Francis.
it was a structure, and with this endless chain on it that pulled the ice cakes up there.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else that you guys did up there at the ice house? I mean, you swam, obviously. Were there other things that you
Well,
did?
just the ice fish in the wintertime up
Yeah.
there, no, just
But never cooled off up there, huh?
fun.
Never cooled off? No one told you about the place to cool off up there?
Yeah, I never heard of that. I was wondering how they got in underneath the ice house and had the drippings on them, because the ice house was like flat on the ground, and I suppose maybe there was 3-story high.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe they got it.
But I didn't think that there was any like partitions in between. I thought that it was you loaded the first floor with ice, and then you just kept going up
Right.
on with that.
I'll have to find out who it was that told us that, because it sounded as though they were able to get under, at least I envisioned it when she told me, and I believe it was a woman.
Yeah,
That it would have been at the ground level,
yeah.
where it would have been cool, and then they would have had whatever
Yeah,
drippings would have
yeah.
been coming down from there.
And the I can remember the long string of empty cars up the track from where they would be filling. And maybe I said before about the fellow had a horse, and as the cars got filled down here, he would bring cars down. He would go up and they'd just hitch the horse to 4 or 5 cars, and he'd release the brakes, and that horse would pull the cars down to where they were ready to load them, you know.
1 horsepower.
1 horsepower. And that was Chief Bill Quigley's great-grandfather.
Really?
Yeah. Jim McPhail, his name was.
Oh, that's your scout leader, right?
Pardon?
Is that your?
No.
That was Byron. Okay, excuse me. McPhail's?
McPhail. Jim McPhail.
How do you think that's spelled?
McPhail, I think.
And that's
See that?
Bill Quigley Sr. or Jr.'s grandfather?
Bill Quigley the third.
Grandfather.
Grandfather. Great-grandfather. Sure, because Bill Quigley the chief, his father Bill.
Yeah. Would have been his
and
grandfather.
His father was Bill. And
yes, okay, right.
Jim McPhail was Bill Quigley's
great-grandfather.
Our current 2016 chiefs would have been his great-grandfather.
Yeah.
I think is what you got.
Yeah.
Now, did that happen in the wintertime? Is that when they were?
In the summertime, when they were filling the cars.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
They didn't fill too much in the wintertime because there wasn't that much ice trade in the wintertime, you know. Yeah. But in the summertime, that old horse would just pull those cars down there, you know, and never had any reins or anything, you know. He just
pulled the chain or whatever, and it was
unhook the horse, and the horse would follow him up there, and they'd hook onto the cars, and they'd say, you know, "Get up, Joe," or whatever the horse's name was, and the horse would lean into the thing, and pretty soon the cars would start to move, and he'd pull them down. And then when they got down there, they'd apply the brake on the car. And
that's great.
The horse
That's a good piece of information. I'm sure that would be good for the book too. Great. Well, I'm just about done. I think those are some of the things that I wanted to follow up on your notes, and I think we're running just a bit out of time at this point, so I've got to run to an appointment. But
my wife says, "What's time to a hog?" So then,
I do have one question.
Please do. Yes.
Back to the chips.
Yeah.
As a kid living in Oregon, the schools were heated with sawdust and chips. Did they ever use those chips here in town to heat the buildings, like the schools or any of the larger buildings?
You're thinking of wood chips.
Wood chips, yeah.
No, this was ice chips.
Oh, these were ice chips.
Ice chips.
Oh.
This was from the when the ice cakes came out of the lake and started up to the ice house. There was scrapers that kept the ice the ice cakes at all uniform size, and because they were cut square or whatever size they were cut. But this scraped the top of them off to keep them all the same height, you know, and then all chips were floated away. For a long time, there was piles of them around the ice house.
That's right.
There's pictures of it, but I never remember that.
Yeah, we have pictures. I just saw one the other day, and it looked as though one of them was at least a story or a story and a half high.
Yeah. But a
couple of them actually.
Did the kids play on them?
No, the pile was high and it was frozen. You know, the chips would freeze, and like a cone. It was like a big cone. They came off a chute up in the air. And I don't remember how high the chute was, but it was like a cone, and naturally they'd freeze, you know, and
kind of rough.
And it was just like melting of a glacier, you know. But they never fell down, you know.
Any other questions you have, Nancy?
No, I don't, because you've given me some good things to include. I've done so many interviews, and each one of them, who were mostly the spectators, have given me little tidbits of things that were to me very interesting. But the construction of the track, Randy Falone driving around it to find the groove, and then when they paved it, the groove disappeared, which is the reason they had so many accidents. I mean, and so after I get these transcribed, I just go through and I say, oh, this is really interesting. Well, according to Del Porter, you know, Del Porter remembers driving the ambulance, which was an old hearse. That to me is the interesting part of the history, not somebody's research that they've put online somewhere.
Did they ever tell you that at one time Brookline had a bus service that they ran to Nashua? There was a fellow in town, I can't think who, he came from Mount Vernon, moved back to Mount Vernon, and they ran a bus service to Nashua. Had an old large car. He lived in the house where Alfie and Rita Hall lived in after Alfie and Rita moved into the big house. That's the next house from Winston Hall.
The brown house,
I can't think of his name. I was trying to think of him.
Public transportation?
Yeah, public transportation. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Was it
they had a big car, and then he had a bus. Hey, Jan, come here a minute. Because there was a fellow killed on the bus, and she was on the bus.
Was there? So the bus was for public transportation. Was it there to benefit the the racetrack as well, or not? Not specifically.
Was it again? Say it again.
Was it there to benefit the racetrack at all?
No. This was not connected with the racetrack at all. This fellow started this bus line, and
You've got a chair now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Come on. I'm locking you out of your own home. There you go. Come on in.
Come out. When the bus line, do you remember what that fellow's name was that started the bus lines? Came from Mount Vernon. Lived up in Alfie and Rita's house. They started a bus line, and then the
last name seems like it's a B, a French name.
No, he wasn't French.
No? All right, I'm not.
Because he had a son. That I knew the son pretty well. Anyway, they did eventually get a bus, didn't they? And you were on the bus the night they went to the dance, and I used the bus to take a group to Hollis to the dance.
Thanksgiving night.
And it was in the wintertime.
It was Thanksgiving night.
Yeah, and the road was slippery. You couldn't get up Proctor Hill.
It wasn't too good weather, and Freddie Jepson was driving the bus.
Okay.
And he thought if he came home, the bus didn't have that good brakes on it. Because I don't know if you say that out loud, you know.
So they came Worcester Road.
They went over Worcester Road, that it was less dangerous than going Proctor Hill.
Worcester Road?
Worcester Road in Hollis.
Where is that?
Almost down to Kimball's Fruit Farm on 122.
Yeah.
The road to the right before you get to Kimball's, just before you get to Kimball's. That's Worcester Road. And that comes out down near the Pepperell, Hollis, West Hollis line.
Okay.
Comes out down there.
Yeah. So continue, I'm sorry.
And
so
something happened to the bus. It turned over.
Yeah.
Were you on the bus at the time? Mm-hmm. So give me a little bit more of that story, if you don't mind sharing.
Oh, I don't know. I think I was with Luella Hughes, Luella Montgomery, and we'd gone to the dance, and we were going home. And as I say, they decided to go that way, and Freddie had Arnold Wright up front with him to help him shift. Okay. Because he had a bad arm. A real good bus. And the bus tipped, and Arnold jumped, and instead of clearing it, it killed him.
The bus landed on him.
And the rest of us were tipped out of our seats, and we went out the back end of the bus. And I remember saying to somebody, for heaven's sakes, put that match out. Where's the gas tank? Because there was nobody had a light.
Was it a school bus?
It was a bus.
A bus.
Yeah, it was a
Just an old A bus.
A bus.
That's all.
probably the same thing like a school bus, you know, but it wasn't. It wasn't
No,
used
this
for the Brookline school.
It was
No.
small. It
No.
wasn't a very big one.
No.
I'm sorry, who was shifting?
Hmm?
Who was shifting?
Arnold.
I don't think you better go into that part.
no.
That's between you and I.
Okay, well, we're on record, so if you want me to just...
Well, then you can.
Okay, we'll take it out.
The driver.
Fortunately, we can
You don't
edit.
need to mention names like
Okay,
that. That's
okay.
just something that.
Is that not appropriate to put in the history or not?
No,
Okay.
not a bit.
Okay, right, that's fine.
The fact that he was killed during
Yeah.
the accident, yes,
Yes,
that's all right.
That's what I mean, that's what I
And
mean.
and the fellow's son is still alive,
Yeah.
so you know it just.
Yeah, so that's tragic, I mean, obviously.
So some of us went to one house there, and another group went somewhere else, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I remember calling George Rockwood. It seems so funny when I think of it now, to come and pick us up. And he came over and picked up myself and Llewellyn and Ruth Bobian and Eliza Wright. And we came home. He let us out. I think it's down by Hall's store maybe or somewhere, because we walked up the hill to see Charlotte and Dick.
Dick Wright.
We didn't know if they knew about it or not. But when we got there, they were gone. So we walked back down, and Ruth went home with Liza. And I walked home to my place, to my home. That was the end of that.
You were living across the street from the store then, weren't you?
No, we were right.
You were living up Stone Fence?
Yeah.
What was your what were you feeling at that moment? What was your how were you going and handling that whole situation? I mean, phased, but
I don't know.
Did you know that when you left there? Did you know that somebody had died, or did you
We
find that
weren't
out
sure,
later?
but we couldn't find him. We didn't see him, so we didn't know what had happened. Actually, really, no. I don't. Not as I remember.
Yeah. So you probably found out what, that he was dead the next day, or maybe the same evening sometime?
You must have known that night if you were going up to see Charlotte and Dick to tell them that Arnold was dead.
I don't know if that's why we were going or not.
Oh.
That I don't know. I didn't get too involved in that part. I wasn't thinking about that. Somebody made me call George Rockwood. That was an odd. Because you know
Joy.
there was what was the connection? Why would we have called him?
Well, Judge Rockwood was the chief of the fire department at that time, and he was
He had a car.
select man. You know, he was one of the notable figures in town then, at that time. And he lived that house on the right-hand side just before you turn into the ball field going up Milford Street. I don't know who the people are that live there now, but just by the parking lot for the ball field, that house before. George Rockwood.
do you remember the year approximately?
Well, I would say it was probably 40.
It was while I was in the service,
Yeah, you were in the service.
and I went in 43, first part of 43. So it was
Yeah.
43, 44.
44 or 40. It couldn't have been 45.
No, 43, 44.
No, we'll look for records of 44. All right. Well, I'm done. Are you done?
I think so. Thank you very, very much.
Oh, that's okay.
Regine, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Del. And if we have time again, I'd like to sit down
Okay.
with both of you. Would you mind sitting with us?
Well, what did you were already supposed to have a date for May 24th, 21st, or 22nd?
You gonna come for that?
Huh?
You gonna come for that?
Well, didn't you get the answer?
Oh, I haven't been involved with it. Peter Webb would have gotten that. So.
Oh, that's Peter. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
and we'll talk about that tonight. So good. So you'll be there.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
are we going to find out when?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'm sure we
I
will.
mean, was he going to pick one day or another?
Yeah, I think. Well, I think his letter should have. Did you get a letter from Peter?
Yeah.
Okay. So on that should have been a time that you prefer, or not? Did he do it that way?
We said he said or either, and so we said yes or either.
Okay. Okay. So I guess we'll decide that for you tonight. We'll see.
Before you go, I got
Yes.
a couple of things I want to ask you. Take this off because I want to get up.
You want this on record? or-
Where are we?
No.
This not. It pertains to the historical system.